The knock against the glass startled Ethan before the coffee even reached his lips. He turned, expecting maybe a bird, but his chest clenched when he saw her again. The lynx stood on the wet boards of his porch, her fur darker from last night's rain. And this time she wasn't alone. Clamped in her jaws, limp but alive, was a tiny cub, its paws dangling. Two more shapes rustled in the ivy near the steps, their mews high and desperate. Ethan froze in the kitchen doorway. The scene looked unreal, like something out of a documentary playing just beyond his window. The mother's eyes fixed on him, yellow and sharp, but not wild with aggression. They carried something closer to exhaustion. Behind the glass, he whispered into his phone, the line already open with Megan from the Wildlife Center. He said quietly that she was back, and this time with 3 cubs. Megan's voice cut through the static, calm but urgent. She told him not to open the door, not to move toward them. "Take a deep breath," she said, "and keep the barrier between you." The cubs were crying because they were hungry. The mother was smart enough to bring them where she found food yesterday. Ethan admitted he'd put out a bowl of scraps by the edge of the deck, just once, just to help her survive the storm. Megan didn't scold him, but she made it clear. If he wanted to help, he had to do it right this time. "Go to the shed," she instructed, "find gloves, any old container. Set water and a bit of meat at the tree line, not on the porch. Distance is everything." Ethan nodded, even though she couldn't see him. His hands shook as he pulled on rubber gloves. The mother lynx growled low, a warning, when he slid the door open. He stopped, keeping his eyes low. Step by step, he carried the bowl away from the house, his boots sinking into damp soil. He set it down near a stump just inside the first row of trees, then backed away slowly until he felt the safety of his door again. The mother didn't move at once. She waited, body tense, until he was gone. Then she padded forward, the cub in her mouth swinging lightly. She dropped it near the bowl and called the others. Ethan watched, heart hammering, as 3 small bodies wobbled toward the food. One lagged behind, favoring its front paw. It cried louder than the rest, its steps uneven. Megan's voice in his ear hardened. "One of them is injured. Keep watch tonight. We'll need eyes on them." Tom's voice broke the moment. From across the fence line came a shout, sharp with fear. He cursed, demanding to know what Ethan was doing letting wild cats onto his porch. His dogs barked madly behind him, straining at the gate. Tom yelled that he'd call the police, that someone would get mauled. Ethan kept his tone even, though his throat was dry. He told Tom he was already in touch with the Wildlife Center, that experts were guiding every move. Tom didn't like it. He slammed his gate, muttering threats, but at least he pulled the dogs back. Rain began to spit again, pattering on the boards. The cubs tore at the meat clumsily, their mother standing guard, ears swiveling. Ethan filmed through the window, his phone trembling in his grip. He asked Megan how he was supposed to watch them through the night. She said she'd arrange for Ranger Cole to stop by, to bring a trail camera. That way they'd have proof of behavior and could track the injured cub without crowding them. Lightning flickered beyond the trees, followed by a low roll of thunder. Ethan pressed his forehead against the cool glass. On the other side, the lynx family huddled around the bowl, wet fur pressed close, the injured cub still crying. He whispered to no one that he didn't know how long they'd survive like this. The storm thickened, and the forest seemed to lean closer, listening. "Tomorrow," Megan said firmly, "the ranger will come. Tonight, just keep the lights off, stay inside, and let them eat." Ethan backed away, heart still racing. He killed the kitchen light, leaving only the gray glow of the storm outside. The last thing he saw before the window went dark was the mother lifting her head, rain dripping from her whiskers, her eyes locked on the house as if asking for more than he could give. Ranger Cole's truck pulled into the gravel drive before noon. The dogs across the fence barked madly, and Tom's curses carried over the noise, but Ethan kept his eyes on the uniformed man stepping out. Cole moved with the calm weight of someone used to tense situations. He shook Ethan's hand firmly and wasted no time. "Show me where they came last night," he said. Ethan led him to the porch, the boards still bearing faint muddy prints. Cole studied them, then paced the short stretch to the tree line where Ethan had set the food. He turned back and marked the ground with bright red flagging tape, stretching it in a line across the yard. "This is your red line," Cole explained. "You and your neighbor stay behind it. Food goes just beyond. Water too. No lights at night, no shouting. You want them to survive? You give them space. Ethan nodded, feeling both reassured and suddenly overwhelmed. Cole reached into the back of his truck and handed him a small weatherproof box with straps. Trail cam. Strap it to that pine. It'll catch motion day and night. No need to sit at the window shaking every time they move. Ethan followed the instructions, fingers fumbling as he pulled the straps tight around the bark. The lens faced the clearing where the food would be set. When he stepped back, Cole gave an approving nod. Good. Tonight we'll see how she feeds them. Now move that bowl 1 yard deeper. Tomorrow, another. We draw them back to the forest where they belong. The lynx family didn't appear during the bright hours. Ethan busied himself carrying the food bowl farther, every few hours shifting it just enough to build the path. By late afternoon, he placed it on damp moss at the edge of a fallen log. He sprinkled water over the boards of the porch to erase the lingering scent. The forest felt heavier with expectation. Tom cornered him at the fence, arms crossed tight. "This is insane," he snapped. "My dogs are losing their minds. If one of those cats hops the fence, I'll shoot it." Ethan breathed slowly. Cole walked over before Ethan could answer. "Nobody's shooting anything," the ranger said flatly. "You keep your dogs penned. These cats are moving away, not closer. Let the process work." Tom muttered, but, under Cole's steady look, leashed the barking animals and dragged them back inside. Ethan mouthed a silent thanks. As the sun dropped, the first soft cries came from the woods. Ethan watched from the darkened kitchen, lights off. The trail cam's infrared clicked softly, invisible to the animals. The mother lynx appeared, muscles rippling under her coat, dragging something limp in her jaws. A rabbit, freshly caught. She laid it down near the log, and 3 cubs clambered forward. The injured one trailed again, paw awkward, but it pushed to the edge of the circle. Through the small screen of the camera later, Ethan watched the footage with Cole beside him. The cubs wrestled the rabbit, unsure how to tear it. The mother ripped the hide and nudged pieces toward them. 2 ate eagerly, squeaking. The limping one tried, paw slipping, head jerking back in frustration. It clawed at the fur, but couldn't get enough. Ethan's stomach tightened. He asked quietly what would happen if it failed to eat. Megan's voice came over speakerphone, calm but edged with urgency. "If by tomorrow it's weaker, we'll prep a box trap. Quick checkup, nothing more. We don't want dependency, but we won't let it starve." Ethan rubbed his temples, staring at the paused frame of the tiny body leaning on its siblings, eyes bright with hunger. The storm had cleared, but the weight of decision pressed heavier than the night around them. Cole clapped his shoulder. "For now we watch. Let the forest do its part." Ethan nodded, though doubt burned in his chest. Outside, the trees swayed under a rising wind, and the red tape at the yard's edge flickered in the dark like a warning they could not afford to cross. Rain came down steady from dawn, soaking the yard until the boards of the porch gleamed dark. Ethan stood with his hood pulled low, watching the red tape whip in the wind. Beyond it, the forest was blurred silver with water, every leaf dripping. The cubs cried faintly through the storm, the injured one louder, its thin voice carrying sharp across the clearing. Megan's call broke through the patter of rain. "You'll need to add fluids," she instructed. "Mix electrolytes into a deeper bowl of water. Set it at the tree line. Do not step past the tape." Ethan rummaged through the shed, found an old ceramic dish heavy enough not to tip, and stirred the powder into rainwater. His hands trembled as he carried it out. The lynx mother appeared at the edge of the trees, ears pinned, body wet but solid. Ethan kept his gaze down, set the bowl near the stump, and backed away slow until the porch rails touched his spine. The family moved cautiously. The healthy cubs lapped quickly, shaking droplets from their whiskers. The limping one took longer, its paw dragging through the mud, but finally reached the dish. It drank greedily, water dripping from its chin. Ethan exhaled, relief cutting through his nerves. Megan's voice stayed steady in his ear. "Good. Hydration buys us time. Don't interfere further." Hours crawled under the pounding rain. By late afternoon, Ethan caught movement on the trail cam. The mother returned with a hair dangling from her mouth. She laid it near the dish and tore it open with practiced strength. The cubs crowded, tiny bodies shoving. The injured one struggled but managed to tear a strip, its small jaw working hard. Ethan let out a sound halfway between a sob and a laugh, pressing his forehead against the cold window. By evening, headlights cut across the wet yard. Megan stepped from her car in a raincoat, followed by Dr. Harris, a veterinarian with gray hair tucked under a hood. Ethan hurried to meet them at the porch, speaking in low tones to avoid startling the cats. They set up binoculars under the overhang, glassing the family from a distance. Harris whispered her assessment. The limp was real, but not catastrophic. Likely a sprain or a minor fracture, but the cub was moving, feeding, keeping up enough. To trap now would risk panic and separation. Better to watch, let the mother's care and rest heal it. Ethan nodded, though part of him wanted immediate action. Megan put a hand on his shoulder. Sometimes restraint is the best help, she said. Let them be wild. Night fell heavy, the rain finally thinning to drizzle. Ethan sat with the ranger's monitor in his lap, reviewing the trail cam clips. The cub's movements flickered in grainy black and white. He yawned, exhaustion pulling at him, when a new frame made him sit upright. Not a lynx. A sleek shadow nosed into view, tail bushy, eyes glowing pale in the infrared. A fox prowled around the food site, sniffing, circling. The lynx family was absent in that moment, but the intruder lingered, pawing at scraps, testing the ground. Ethan's stomach tightened again. If scavengers found the site, the lynx might be driven closer to the house or forced into conflict. He dialed Megan immediately. She listened, then said firmly, "Tomorrow you'll need to move the food deeper, closer to water. The stream will mask scent and give them cover. Tonight, stay put. No lights, no noise." Ethan looked out into the dark trees, where the fox had vanished. The porch smelled of wet wood, the forest alive with dripping. Somewhere out there, the cubs huddled against their mother, the injured one pressed tight for warmth. Ethan shut off the monitor. The final image of glowing fox eyes burned into his mind like a warning of what was coming next. Morning broke gray but dry, the storm finally gone. The ground smelled of wet earth and pine, and mist clung low over the clearing. Ethan met Megan and Cole at the porch, the trail cam in Cole's hand showing the fox's visit from the night before. "We moved them deeper today," Megan said. "To the stream. Less scent, more cover." Cole nodded and lifted a cooler from the truck bed, the scent of fresh rabbit heavy inside. "We'll use this. Let the mother carry it in." Ethan felt a mixture of hope and worry pressing down on him, knowing each step away from the house mattered. They moved together along the narrow deer path, the forest closing around them. Ethan's boots sank into mud, branches dripping onto his shoulders, and the sound of water grew louder as they approached the stream. Megan pointed to a spot near the bank where water widened into a shallow pool. "Place it here. The stream will scatter scent, and the noise will drown small cries." Ethan set the rabbit down on the mossy ground, hesitating before backing away. Cole pulled more red tape from his bag, tying it across nearby trunks. "Your new line," he said firmly. "Don't cross it. Let them own this space now." Ethan stared at the tape, realizing how much of his own yard had already slipped back into the wild. When they returned to the porch, Tom was waiting, arms folded, dogs straining against their leashes. He spat his frustration. "You're dragging them closer to my side of the woods. This is insane." Megan stayed calm. "Actually, we're pulling them away from houses, toward the water, where prey is natural." Cole added, "If you want to help, clear the trash behind your fence. Predators will scavenge less if the place is clean." Tom bristled, but said nothing. Later that afternoon, Ethan spotted him in the underbrush with gloves and a garbage bag, hauling out broken bottles, cans, and torn plastic. To everyone's surprise, he found old wire snares half buried in weeds, rusted but still deadly. Cole cursed under his breath, coiling them up. "Better gone than waiting for a paw," Tom grumbled, but Ethan saw a flicker of something else. Uneasy respect or maybe guilt, as he carried the bag to the road. By dusk, the lynx appeared on the trail cam near the stream. The mother's coat gleamed, wet with dew, her cubs bounding clumsily after her. She sniffed the rabbit, then dragged it closer to the water. The cubs wrestled and tore, one slipping into the shallows and scrambling out, soaked but unharmed. Ethan and Megan watched the footage in silence, both smiling despite the tension. This was progress, wild behavior, not porch begging. For a few minutes, the video was nothing but the sound of rushing water and the squeaks of young predators learning what it meant to feed themselves. That evening the yard felt empty. For the first time in days, no cries echoed at the window, no shapes crouched on the deck. The boards stayed dry, only the forest sounds filling the dark. Ethan sat with the lights off, listening, half relieved and half hollow. He wondered if the silence was peace or loss, if helping them move meant letting go sooner than he was ready. His phone buzzed. Cole had texted another clip from the stream cam. The mother guiding her cubs to paw at minnows in the shallows, their small swipes clumsy but eager. Ethan watched it twice, 3 times, heart swelling, knowing this was the life they were supposed to learn. Near midnight, the silence pressed heavier than the rain ever had. Ethan stepped onto the porch, barefoot, boards cool under his feet. The red tape flapped faintly at the edge of the yard, untouched. No eyes glowed in the brush, no cries split the dark. He let himself believe they were settled deeper, safer. He cleaned the deck, swept away old prints, and left the wood bare, as if preparing for absence. The night carried only the rustle of leaves and the whisper of water through the trees, steady and distant. When he finally lay down near dawn, he almost missed it, the soft sound of claws on wood. Gentle, tentative, like a question asked without words. He held his breath in the dim light, ears straining. Something had returned, close enough to touch if not for the glass between them. He closed his eyes, not daring to move, afraid the moment would vanish if he acknowledged it, and let the weight of both fear and wonder sink into him with the coming day. The first light of dawn spilled across the yard, thin and pale after the stormless night. Ethan woke to the faint scrape of claws on wood. He rose quietly, heart already racing, and moved to the kitchen window. On the porch, framed by the soft glow, the lynx mother stood. Her coat caught the new sun, damp with dew, her breath rising in faint clouds. She carried no rabbit, no scraps. She carried nothing at all, only the weight of her silent presence. Ethan stayed still, barely breathing, his fingertips pressed against the cool glass. She looked at him through the pane, head tilted slightly, eyes steady and unblinking. Not pleading, not demanding. Watching, as though making a final judgment. Behind her, the forest whispered with the faint cries of cubs wading deeper among the trees, their voices thin but insistent. The mother lingered a long moment, as if weighing some unspoken measure between them. Then she turned, muscles smooth beneath her coat, and stepped off the boards. Her paws made no sound in the grass as she vanished into the trees, tail flicking once before the undergrowth closed around her. Ethan stood rooted, pulse echoing in his ears. The porch felt strangely empty once she was gone, the space carrying a sudden hollow quiet. His phone buzzed, jolting him. Megan's voice came through when he answered, gentle but clear. That's a good sign. She's anchored them at the stream. They'll feed themselves now. Ethan swallowed hard, staring at the clean boards where the prints were already fading with the morning warmth. He whispered that it felt like goodbye, though part of him clung to the hope of another glimpse. Later that day, Cole arrived to collect the last of the supplies. They spoke little, both aware the chapter was closing. Together they pulled down the red tape, rolling it into neat coils, and carried away the empty bowls. The yard, once tense with wildlife, now looked like any other rural clearing. Ethan checked the trail cam one last time. The screen flickered to life, showing grainy but unmistakable movement. The limping cub stepped through the shallow stream, placing its paw more firmly than before. It wobbled but kept pace with its siblings, head lifted, eyes alert. Ethan's throat tightened as he replayed the clip, needing to see it again, to believe it, his chest warming each time the cub stayed upright. Cole clapped him on the shoulder before leaving. You did your part. Now it's theirs. Ethan nodded, though words stuck in his throat. He watched the ranger's truck disappear down the road, leaving him alone with the whispering forest. By evening, the yard was silent. No cries, no tracks, only the rustle of wind in the leaves. The boards of the porch looked bare, every mark swept clean. Ethan stood a long while, listening, the forest's hum filling the quiet, the occasional caw of a crow overhead, the rustle of squirrels in the branches. He didn't feel abandoned. He felt entrusted, as if the wild had brushed close for just long enough and then withdrawn where it belonged, carrying its secrets back into the shadows of the trees. When night came, he sat outside with the lights off, the air cool against his skin. The stream's distant murmur carried faintly through the trees, mingled with the far-off calls of night birds and the occasional drip of water from the roof. He closed his eyes, holding the memory of yellow eyes and dawn light, a silent look across the glass, and the knowledge that sometimes helping meant stepping back. His chest felt heavy, but also at peace. The porch stayed empty, and that emptiness felt right, like a promise kept. Long after midnight, Ethan lingered, listening to the quiet. He thought about how fragile the line was between people and the wilderness, how easily broken if one step went too far. Yet tonight, that line felt steady. He finally rose, went inside, and turned off his phone. The forest breathed beyond the walls, alive and whole, and Ethan lay down with a quiet sense of closure, knowing the family was out there, strong enough to make it on their own.